Do you hear that sound? That's the sound of hell. Okay, so here's the deal. This is the very last door that I have to paint on my house. I painted the back door, and then I went and painted the front door. I did not videotape that because I wanted to focus, because it had to look great because it's the front door. And it does look great. But now I'm onto this door, so I'm using what I've learned in the last two. Gonna hopefully make this door look the best that it can, and see how it goes. So my husband has already sanded this door, so now I am getting all of the excess dust and dirt off of it by washing it down and drying it. Then I move on to taping off the doorknob and the lock. You can also take yours off if you're able to do so, but ours are kind of weird and we were not able to take them all the way off. It'd be easier if you took them off. Now, when it comes to taping, obviously you're taping the windows. Obviously you're taping the doorknob and the lock. But make sure you're also taping your door hinges, unless you want to paint over them, because I'm going to be painting this to match this, because that's what you're supposed to do. And I'm gonna paint that first so that has the longest time to dry before I have to close the door at the end of the day. But before I start the door jam, I have some extra paint in my cup from some touch-ups I did on the front door today. So I'm gonna go ahead and start on the other first thing you need to paint is the trim work or any inset, because that is gonna take a lot of paint and you wanna get that on there as soon as you can. Okay, so while I wait for my paint to dry, I cleaned all my stuff. So I have this handy bucket. I'm sure a lot of people know about it, but my dad didn't know about it. It's got a magnet right here so that your paintbrush can just go boop. It's pretty sturdy, so that it doesn't just like sit in the paint and get really gross. So I have this brush, which I really love. It's a pretty brush. It's so pretty. And I also have a craft brush. I found this really useful when I did the front door. I had lots of places, especially in the grooves of the inset parts of the door, that just continued to be lighter and have like little streaks and have a lighter color blue or white show through. So I would take this and just do a little bit of paint on top. So I am finally able to start actually putting paint on the door. So I'm starting with the door jamb. As we said before, you want the door jamb to match the exterior of your door, because when you open it, that's what guests are gonna see, those two parts. So I'm painting this first because it really needs to dry. And I try not to do more than 2 coats in this area, just because it just takes forever to dry, and unless you're gonna spend 12 hours doing this, you wanna get the paint on there pretty good, pretty solid, but don't worry too much about it. It's the door jamb. That's not what people are looking at in your door. So just be neat, be tidy about it, and it's gonna make a whole huge bit of difference when you're done. So with the door jamb finished and starting to dry, I start my way from the top and work my way down on the remainder of the trim work. Now I have 6 windows on this door, so there's a lot of trim work to paint, and I really want to make sure I get it thick on there, because for some reason paint just does not like sticking to those areas. So eventually, I know I've got my craft brush, I can touch up, but for this first coat I really want to cover it with lots of color. Now that the finicky stuff is kind of done, it's time to go big. All right, so now it's time to really start getting the paint on this door. I like to start from the top and work my way down. It helps me remember where my wet edge is, which is why you see me going back and forth on either side of the windows. And what's great is I've already done a coat on the insets of the door towards the bottom, so they're already on their second coat, which is really going to ensure that I get nice even coverage in those hard to reach spots. Now, could I have pulled out my little roller for this project? Yes, but the brush was doing a good job, and if I just stick with one applicator, I'm gonna waste less paint. Okay, the first coat is on. I was much more liberal with the paint than I have been on the last 2 doors, which hopefully means that I won't have to do 4 coats of this paint, but we'll see. But I have to let this dry like really good. Luckily, it's actually the surface of the sun out here, and I should be able to put on another coat here in a couple hours. So I'm gonna go clean my brushes for sure, and we'll come back. Just appears to be the worst day to make a video outside. The first coat is done, and I'm gonna do the second coat. As before, I start with the door jamb. Do you need 2 coats in the door jamb? Maybe not, but I did. And then I start my way from the top and go all the way down. And this time I just included the fancy detailed trim parts in my work down. so that I could make sure that I was getting a consistent coat for this second and hopefully last coat of paint on this whole door. Okay, next day. It looks pretty good. I really did need to lather on that paint, but I still do need one more coat of paint. So as you can see here, there's some lighter spots that just don't make it look, obviously, like right here. I'm gonna go back in with my tiny little paintbrush, but on the whole, looking pretty good. So I think we're just gonna do one more light-ish coat to fill in those little gaps, and then we will be done. It's so bizarre how differently the color goes on and how it dries. So I really can't do anything until it is dry. All right, do you want to go outside? Are you? I'm not going nowhere, Mama. I'm just watching. All right, final day of painting the door. It's dried for a couple days. It looks pretty good. Now I'm going to touch up the very few places that need some love and attention. It's mostly around the windows. They're just little spots that I didn't get enough paint on. But otherwise, it looks pretty thorough. We're gonna cut this tape off because I'm sure I'm gonna peel some tape off. It is, or some paint off. It is latex paint. And the brush did a pretty good job. I don't think it would have turned out any better or worse if I had used a roller. So I'm happy. Let's see how it goes. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the tape off of the lock and the doorknob and also the windows before I do my touch-up work so that I know exactly, hello Dan, if I have any little spots where paint peels off or things that I missed. That way I'm not doing a ton of extra work. Okay, so I've taken off the tape off of one of the windows and it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. The brown is the inside through the glass. There are a couple spots on this side where there's a little bit of white, which I'm probably just gonna leave. But the doorknobs actually look pretty good. There's a little spot on the bottom that I'll probably redo. And the sides of these look okay. I can clean them up just a little bit, but you know, it's a back door, y'all. So we painted the door. It looks great. I've got my sign back on it. It dried nice and dark. All of my little touch-ups totally worked. And I'm totally in love with it. Here are the things that I learned from painting all of my doors. Number one, all of the prep work that you do for doing walls, 100% applies to doors. So as much as you can prepare by taping, by sanding, by cleaning, is gonna make your painting process so much easier. Another thing I learned, make sure that you have an entire day to be able to leave your door open. Because when I painted my front door, I had to go out like 2 or 3 days because I was only doing it a little bit, and it got really frustrating to have to leave the door open to really, really dry when I had other things that I could be doing. Luckily for this one, I had the entire day, and it did take a couple of days to really get good coats on there and to make it look really, really stellar. But I think it was entirely worth it. But if you know, hey, I need an entire day to do this one project, or an entire couple of days, your expectations are going to be a little bit better for your project. So thanks for watching, and I hope your door project goes really great.